Hi, in this video I'm going to be talking about the importance of meeting students' needs, just understanding their goals for learning, and helping to make sure those goals are met. So specifically I'm going to be looking at adult ESL classes. And the information that I have here is based on a project I did at a local library last summer, where I observed beginner and intermediate adult ESL classes that were open to the community, and I also spent some time interviewing teachers and interviewing students. And my goal in doing this was to understand students' reasons for attending classes and their goals, and understanding how the teachers were working to meet those goals. So the first thing I learned obviously was what those goals were, and they included being able to help their families or their children, which is obviously very important, being able to advocate for them, being able to help them find the services they need. Finding jobs was obviously very important. Many teachers mentioned that their students came to these classes in order to prep for interviews. Another goal was being able to advocate for themselves in the workplace, whether that meant being able to ask for a raise or something like that. And adapting to American culture was a goal that many students themselves mentioned, because they felt that that was important to them, and that learning the language was a key step in being able to do that. Socializing with other people was another goal that was mentioned pretty often. And then finally, being able to communicate with teachers, doctors, and other community members. And again, being able to reach out and make those connections when needed, and being able to use English to do that. So obviously these are generally pretty specific to adult learners, but some of them can be applied to younger learners as well. And in general, the idea of teachers being able to understand their students' goals is always important. So in addition to being able to identify those goals, I also found 8 factors that kind of help guide teachers in being able to understand their students and understand how to shape their classes to best serve them. So the first one was, like I mentioned, knowing those goals, which is incredibly important, and that cannot be done unless teachers have a strong relationship with their students. And when you're talking about younger learners, it's also important to have that relationship with parents and families. And the second factor that I noticed was student choice. These classes that were offered there were excellent because they were so student-centered, and they allowed students to make choices all the time, whether that was something as simple as, are we ready to move on to something else, or should we do this one more time, or letting students choose the reading materials, anything of that sort, because it gave students a sense of autonomy and let them take control of their learning. The third factor that I noticed was flexibility. Many of the teachers that I interviewed actually said they spent very minimal time prepping for their classes, which is not necessarily something that can always work. But in this case, it worked really well because it allowed teachers to really let their students direct conversations to whatever they felt was interesting to them or relevant to them. And then the fourth factor was real-world materials. It's very important to have newer materials that are not outdated and that really apply to students' lives, because everything that students learn in an ESL classroom, they really have the opportunity to go out and use that day. And so it's important to be teaching them vocabulary that is relevant to their lives. The fifth one was conversation practice. Again, that's what, within the adult ESL realm, that's what many students are there for, is to improve their speaking and listening abilities so that they can participate in conversations better. So it's obviously very important to spend the majority of the class time in conversation. And the next one was social factors, which was just an all-encompassing category that I had. Basically, it means that teachers need to be aware that there are so many external factors going on in students' lives that's going to affect their ability to learn, ability to attend class. And so it's just important to understand that. For example, within this context, many students were hesitant to come to class because they were worried about their legal status and worried about getting involved with the library, which is connected with the government. And so without getting super involved in the legality of students' status in the U.S., but just being able to understand that there are things going on in their lives that you as a teacher might not know about. And the next factor was confidence, which was something that every single teacher I interviewed mentioned. They said it was very important to them that their students gain confidence in their ability to speak English. And then the final one was first language use. Obviously, it's excellent that students should be practicing English as much as possible, but letting them use their first language is also important to show your respect for their language and show that you understand the value of that language. And this is especially important when working with children. So obviously this list is not meant to be a universal guide for all ESL or ELL classrooms, but it can still be a guide for any teacher. And I think that it is so important for us as teachers to get to know our students and to build strong relationships with our students and their families in order to best meet their needs. Thank you.